few things in this course that really stood out to me was the one video we watched where there was a group of people from all kinds of different backgrounds and cultures. They were in like a group setting. Everyone shared their struggles within their lives and the difficulties of people in the group. It stood out to me because I didn't really realize some of the things that white people do to others that are different than us. One specific example from that video we watched was the woman talking about the group of girls who played basketball. And I believe that what happened was that these girls were checked to see if they were really girls, um, because nobody believed them. And I remember feeling embarrassed and angry that that happened. It made me realize how much privilege plays a role in my life and how it lacks in other people's lives. Another thing throughout the course that stood out to me was the cases that we had. Um, and specifically my group, we had Laura. And in her case, she was juggling all kinds of identities. Her husband died, so she was juggling being a widow. And in college, she was with men and women, but called herself mostly straight, so she was struggling with her identity sexually. Um, and she wasn't as active in her church anymore and was also struggling with that. I realized that a person can have many identities and not just one thing that defines you, and it was helpful for me as a counselor to see an example where there are so many factors to a client that maybe we just don't see. It also helped me realize my own identities, which was really interesting to dissect. Moving on to the next question. I think I have made progress in developing my multicultural and social justice counseling competencies. For the first piece, counselor self awareness, like who am I as a person and now as a counseling professional. For me, this question seems more difficult to answer than the others, and I never really thought about myself as a counselor. I know that sounds a little funny as I'm in a counseling program, but I would like to think that as a counselor, I am trying my best to welcome and treat all walks of life to the best of my ability while applying a multicultural lens when needed. Um, in some areas, I think I need improvement on or learning about the cultures of my clients. I know that will be difficult when I become a counselor, but I think it's really important to learn about your client on a personal level and not just like a clinical level. You can talk to a client all day, but if you can't sit back and say, oh, this is something that is a common issue or something specific to this culture, maybe this could help explain this type of behavior or this type of concern that they have. I think once a counselor can see that, then the therapeutic relationship is more effective. The next piece is the client worldview. When I first got my client, I was a little overwhelmed. There were so many areas I needed to address, but I wasn't sure where to start. And I knew that it really was not up to me where to start, it was up to Laura. And my first instinct was to try and fix everything all at once, but I realized that it may not be helpful to Laura to do it that way. I would have asked Laura like which areas were most important to her and what she wanted to focus on first. I think that would have been more beneficial than tackling it all at once. Helping relationship is the next piece. Kind of going off of what I just mentioned, I was worried that Laura had so many identities that she wanted to work on that I, or both of us would get overwhelmed and wouldn't know where to start. I was also worried about her attempts to get herself out there again, because not only did she have identity concerns, but she was also grieving and having symptoms of depression as well. The relationship itself between Laura and I wasn't too concerned about because she came to us for help. She wasn't forced to, and that in itself lets me know that my client is somewhat willing to seek help and motivated to dive into counseling. This next piece is counseling advocacy interventions. To connect this piece to Laura's who Laura who Laura's whole world changed since her husband's passing, and I wanted to start with a person-centered approach to get to know Laura better. And this would help me like explore her environment and family dynamic growing up and how it has affected her life now. Some resources I wanted to provide for Laura were joining a widow support group for young widows, specifically young widows, because in the case she had mentioned that the support group at her church was mostly older women, and that was difficult for her. She felt a little bit out of place. So putting her in an environment where women are closer to her age would be more appropriate. Laura also was considering going back to school, so I wanted to provide her with information on a career counselor so she can explore career opportunities that she may be interested in. Since Laura was also struggling with her um, sexual identity, I thought it would be beneficial for her to join maybe an LGBTQ plus um, program, or maybe a group in her community to get her out there, and she can decide if she wants to explore that or if she doesn't want to. Um, so I'm in the clinical and mental health counseling program, and one of the things that I'm interested in is working with adolescents. So when I think about how counseling informs scholarship and how scholarship informs counseling, I kind of imagine myself making sure techniques or treatment is ethical and holds validity. It simply wouldn't make sense to treat a client using a technique that isn't going to work. So, in the same token, it's really important that I learn as much as I can about my client. And if I don't know or if I'm unsure about something, there's always literature that can help me. Um, in a similar way, it's very important for counselors to recognize when something is an issue for one client and when it is an issue for a community. So, the more counselors learn about people in our communities, the better we can advocate for them. Which also means in order to advocate, we need to be informed about what we're advocating for. Making sure we are researching a topic if we're unsure and that we're getting valid information. Being active in the community to inform scholarship and promote that research is important as well, because it will help improve counseling and it'll help others become informed. So that's the end of my video. I just wanted to say I really enjoyed your class and I really liked this assignment as well. So enjoy my video. Thanks.